Story 1. As a freshman in college, I was excited to move into my dorm and start my new life. The building was old and a little rundown, but it had character, and I was thrilled to be living away from home for the first time. At first, everything seemed normal. I got to know my roommate and the other students on my floor, and we spent our days studying and hanging out in the common areas. But then, strange things started happening. One night, I woke up to the sound of my roommate talking in their sleep. It was a low, guttural sound, like nothing I had ever heard before. I tried to shake them awake, but they wouldn't respond. Then, I noticed something even more terrifying. Their eyes were glowing with an unnatural light. I was paralyzed with fear, unable to move or scream. Suddenly, the room grew cold, and I saw a figure in the doorway, its features twisted and distorted beyond recognition. It was like something out of a horror movie. I tried to convince myself that it was just my imagination, that I was overreacting. But the fear lingered, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off about the dorm. As the weeks went by, more and more strange things happened, doors opening and closing on their own, strange whispers in the night. I tried to ignore it all, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. And then, one night, I woke up to find the figure from the doorway standing right beside my bed, breathing heavily in my ear. I screamed and ran from the room, never to return. To this day, I don't know what happened in that dorm, but I know that I'll never forget the horror that I experienced there. Story 2. It was a typical Friday night in the dorms, and we were all hanging out in the common area, drinking and watching movies. But when I went to the bathroom, I heard a strange noise coming from one of the stalls. I brushed it off and went back to the group, but something felt off. As the night went on, people started disappearing one by one. We assumed they had just gone back to their rooms, but when we tried to leave the common area, we found that the door was locked from the outside. Panic set in as we realized we were trapped in the dorm hall with a serial killer. We tried to call for help, but our phones had no service. The only sound we heard was the slow creaking of the killer's footsteps. We huddled together, waiting for the worst. Suddenly, the killer burst into the room, brandishing a bloody knife. We screamed and tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. One by one, the killer took us down, leaving behind a trail of blood and carnage. As the night wore on, the dorm hall grew quiet, except for the sound of the killer's footsteps as they disappeared into the darkness. When the police finally arrived, they found a gruesome scene. It was a night that none of us would ever forget, a reminder that evil can lurk in even the most seemingly safe and innocent places. Story 3. I had always heard strange noises coming from the dorm hall at night, but I assumed it was just the old building settling. But one night, as I was walking back from the bathroom, I heard a low growl coming from the shadows. I stopped in my tracks, heart racing as I tried to make out what was in the darkness. But before I could react, a monster emerged, its eyes glowing with a sinister light. I tried to run, but the monster was faster, its razor-sharp claws tearing through the air as it chased after me. I could hear its heavy breathing and the sound of its claws scraping against the walls. I stumbled and fell, my heart pounding as the monster closed in on me. But just as it was about to attack, a group of students burst out of their rooms, wielding makeshift weapons. The monster let out an ear-splitting screech as it retreated into the shadows, disappearing as quickly as it had appeared. But the damage had already been done. We knew that the dorm hall was no longer a safe place to live, that something malevolent and dangerous was lurking in the darkness. From that night on, we never walked alone in the dorm hall again. The monster was still out there, waiting for its next victim to come within its grasp.